Hasan Piker on Kamala Harris's loss. You can't podcast your way out of this. A lot of these guys are right adjacent, maybe. They organically found themselves in this space. And I think the Republican Party took advantage of that very well. That same ecosystem doesn't exist on the left. It's not necessarily flooding the market with like a bunch of liberals. Like, oh, if we had like 8 more Pod Save Americas that kind of look like me, for example, like more bro-y, right? Then that would be fine. It's like, no, you can't podcast your way out of this problem. There was a list that looked at who had the top like election night coverage, who had the most views. And that list was populated exclusively by right-wingers except for me. So I'm out there. I'm here. But obviously, I'm not directly aligned with the top of the ticket or with many of the establishment Democrats and their attitude towards consistently and stubbornly defending third-way neoliberalism. There is a divide here that does not exist within the Republican base of support that will develop a relatively conservative audience. So I think this is an issue that has to be solved top down. I think first, it's not about like 10 more podcasters or 20 more liberal podcasters. I think it's more so about the Democratic Party looking within and doing the correct autopsy after this 2016 style defeat. I think not addressing the economic hardships that people were experiencing with direct policy prescriptions in a way that separated yourself from Joe Biden was probably the #1 problem. If the out of touch Democrats, right? Because that's the way people see the Democrats. They see them as like liberal elites. They're out of touch. They only care about like gay stuff or whatever, right? It's not correct, but that's just the way people see the Democrats because the Democrats don't run on left economic populism. If the out of touch liberal elites that are only seemingly caring about gay shit from in the eyes of the public, which is not correct at all. The Democrats definitely don't care about gay shit either. Okay. Trust me. And the only thing you see Donald Trump on, if you also don't really watch a lot of like regular news coverage, the only time you ever see Donald Trump is when he's being a chill ass guy, you know, talking about doing cocaine with Theo Vaughn or being a chill ass dude, making flipping fries at Mickey D's. Then you're like, is this Hitler? Like, I feel like this doesn't make a lot of sense. That Theo Vaughn appearance broke me, dude. That's when I was like, because the Aiden Ross one sucked. And it didn't do a lot for him in terms of positive media coverage, in my opinion. But when I saw the Theo Vaughn interview, I was like, oh no. You remember, like we literally watched it together on stream and I was like, oh my God, he is so personable in this. He is so human in this. He is so chill in this. This is not good. And it wasn't just Theo Vaughn. I think like, Impulsive, Theo Vaughn, the Andrew Schultz podcast, all these podcasts back to back, Nelk Boys, all this shit, like it fucking humanized him and made him look like a chill ass dude. Joe Rogan was the final, was the finishing touch on his, yeah, sure, I got some crazy policies, but I actually have, I actually recognize that the economy is shit and I'm going to solve it. Democrats have been doing some deep soul searching and plenty of finger pointing in the wake of Vice President Kamala Harris's decisive election loss. There's a fairness meter on this article and it's pushed all the way to unfairly left leaning. Yeah, I mean, I don't care. You can't podcast your way out of this problem, Piker told Newsweek on Friday. The biggest mistake that Harris made, in Piker's view, was not addressing voters' concerns about the economy with direct policy proposals that separated her from Biden. For the entirety of Harris's campaign, poll after poll showed that the economy was a major voting issue for the nation. Exit polls showed that deep discontent with the Biden administration's handling of the economy ultimately drove Americans to Trump. National exit polls revealed that 45% of people said they've gotten worse off under the current administration, making it the highest percent of the electorate to ever say as much, even higher than 42% who agreed with that sentiment in 2008. Piker said if the Democratic Party wants to recapture the attention of the voters they won in 2020, they have to abandon what he calls the vibe session narrative, where campaigns chalk up economic anxieties to the fact that Americans don't understand the issue, and that eventually they'll feel it when their wages catch up to inflation. Most Americans do not care about civility. They do not care about these institutions. They do not have an ideological fear. They just want to stop the hurt, Piker said. If Kamala Harris would have come out and been like, I'm literally going to jail the Walton family People have been like, okay, as long as you're promising that that's going to drop the prices of groceries, I don't give a shit. You can't actively act like things are perfect. Things are perfectly fine when things have not been fine for Americans for quite some time. Asked about early data that shows more than 90% of counties shifting for Donald Trump, suggesting that Democrats' late pivot towards moderation may not have been the problem, Piker isn't convinced that it's because Americans love Republican policies. He believes a Democratic candidate who can deliver Senator Bernie Sanders' economic populist message earnestly could yield enormous results in a general election. Luckily, I was still able to have a conversation like this with the Pod Johns ahead of time. So there was at least like somewhere on the record where liberals will hear what I have to say, because they're not fucking tuning into my broadcast. The moment that they hear me criticize Kamala Harris, they were like, oh, this guy sucks. You know, oh, this guy's a hater. He wants Kamala to lose. He's a radical, blah, blah, blah. Like, or even if they're like, I kind of like Hasan, but I really don't agree with him. And I personally don't want to hear him shit on the Democrats because I want to feel good. And that's an understandable desire for people to have, right? I get it. You want a hug box. You want someone to tell you that things are going to be good. The problem is sometimes you need the hard to swallow pills, right? Sometimes you need to hear the hard to swallow pills, because that way you won't be left in the dark. Many members of my community, regardless of voting for Kamala Harris, were, due to my coverage on the issue, very aware of the real risks that were at play, very aware of the likelihood that Donald Trump could win the election, very aware of the likelihood, which I said was going to happen, where potentially Donald Trump could win the popular vote and lose the Electoral College, which did not happen. And that specifically did not happen because of Kamala Harris's incredibly bad campaigning in the blue wall, where it demonstrably did not resonate. The message that she kept pumping, which is another thing that I kept reiterating over and over again. We are not seeing a dramatic shift in the polls. If you're dumping $30 million into TV ads in key districts and it's not swinging in the polls in your favor, that means the ad spend is being burnt. That means that the message is not resonating. And they burned through $1 billion. Do you have any different opinions about the polls after this election, since it seems 98.9 were wrong? Wait, what? No, the polls were not wrong at all. The polls were what? No, the polling was actually very solid. The polling was so solid. If anything, I was wrong for thinking that the pollsters readjustment, the Trump bump, which even the likes of Nate Cohn talked about, was not even there. It was just correct. If anything, they still underestimated Donald Trump to a certain degree. Trump, always my friends. Kamala Harris. He said, Kamala Harris. First of all, who's Kamala Harris? Who's even Kamala Harris? Honestly, like, I've already forgotten. You know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, I think her political career is just, it's done, right? Like, I suspect that her political career is not going to continue from this point on. So, like, it's one of those figures that, like, you can't really even shit on. We said that about Hillary. Yeah, ATL agrees with me, dude. This is like, it's over. Factually true, but needs context. According to the original artist, this spot on the wall is always used for temporary commissions, and it would have been removed no matter the results. The murals are meant to be only temporary advertisement, not last a lifetime. I just think that with Hillary Clinton, you can, like, keep complaining about Hillary Clinton because, like, she's at the very least, you know, a very famous political figure that had a massive impact in the Democratic Party. Like, the Clinton family had a ginormous impact, an outsized impact, dare I say, in the Democratic Party. Like, there are coalitions. She has fedayeen within the Democratic Party, like Debbie Wasserman Schultz and people like that. Whereas like, the party I would even break down as, like, the Obama party. Like, there's an Obama coalition, the Pod Johns and the like. And then there is the Clinton heads, right? And then there's, like, some Pelosi heads as well. Having said that, there are no Kamala heads. You know what I mean? There is no, like, Kamala constituency in the party. As a matter of fact, she had to use Joe Biden's, like, remnants and pieces of the Clintonians within the Democratic Party, and some pieces from the Obama consultant class. So that's probably part of the reason why she lost. Kamala is a Pelosi disciple, to be honest. No, she's not. You want to know why? She 100% is not. Because if she was a full-blown Pelosi disciple, first of all, she would have significantly better political instincts. And Pelosi would have been in the tank for her from the start. Pelosi literally wanted an open primary. So no, she was not. Yeah, Pelosi did not want Kamala Harris. Don't ever let anybody rewrite history. She did not want Kamala Harris. She thought Kamala Harris was a profoundly weak candidate for understandable reasons. She was. Any chance Sotomayor resigns and lets Biden replace before the end of his term? I just saw a post about this. She's not retiring. Justice Sonia Sotomayor has no plans to retire, resisting liberal calls to quit ahead of the Trump presidency. But the problem with Sotomayor retiring now would be that, like, the Republicans would probably not let it happen anyway. What is this? Bro sent me a Blue Sky link. That's crazy. I didn't know we've officially hit that. Blue Sky is so much better. No, it's not. Blue Sky is like Tumblr, dude. What the is Blue Sky? Blue Sky is like woke Twitter, but like because it's all rad libs, you can't really make fun. Blue Sky would be fun if you just like kind of looked at it as like Tumblr and made fun of it, but it's basically lib Twitter, but everyone's a lib. Like it's all rad libs engaging in like sectarial infighting, sectarial violence over minor disagreements, even though everyone is basically voting Democratic Party, straight ticket. It's that type of shit. It's liberal truth social. Yeah, it is. It is liberal truth social. That's a great way to look at it. And I think to me that represents the dynamic and like the asymmetry of what people care about on the liberal end versus the Republican end. On Truth Social, they're like, you know, I don't know what they're fantasizing about. Like, yeah, that's right. Donald Trump is actually the sexiest man, and Americans have been, you know, mainstream liberal media is running a psyop to make us not acknowledge how hot he is, right? Whereas like on lib Twitter, they're like talking about how like furries should be a protected class, and if you don't acknowledge it as such, you're actually being incredibly like zoophobic or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's just like the memes that someone like Asmongold would assume everyone on the left is like.